Hello and welcome to this very special 30th episode of the Nerdflix podcast. Today, to celebrate our 30th episode, we will be covering one of my favorite topics that we've covered yet, Doctor Who. We will, of course, be going over fun facts of the show, but also we will be counting down the top 5 episodes of Doctor Who, seasons 1 through 5. So let's get started.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
First, you gotta do the drum shuffle. Come on!
Exterminate!
Welcome to the Nerdflix podcast.
Doctor Who is my favorite TV show, basically on the planet, and I've seen bits and pieces of about every single season and every single Doctor there was. But right now, solid all the way through, the ones I've watched are seasons 1 through 5. So that's why the top 5 episodes are going to be seasons 1 through 5. Now, in the future, as I get through more seasons, then we will do a bigger list. Also, the list, I'm doing top 5 in the podcast, but the list itself is actually top 30 episodes. There will be a separate, there will be a list posted on the Facebook page within maybe about a week of the top 30 episodes if you do want to see that. But that should be up in, within a week from now. But, for the episode, we will only be covering the top 5. Doctor Who, obviously a British television show, started in 1963 and then was rebooted again in 2005. We'd have 13 different people to play the iconic role of the Doctor, my favorite one being David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, but I also do really like Matt Smith's role as the 11th Doctor, but the 10th is my favorite. Doctor Who is about this Time Lord called the Doctor who travels through space and time in his TARDIS. That's that blue police box thing. And basically he picks up a lot of companions, a lot of friends who comes with him, and he goes on lots of cool sci-fi adventures. So we'll start off right away with episode 5 in the top 5 episode list. So the episode I chose for number 5 best episodes of Doctor Who seasons 1 through 5 is an episode called Amy's Choice from season 5. This one features the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, with 2 companions, Amy Pond and Rory Pond, and they wake up and they've fallen asleep and they've woken up in this world in which they're living completely normal lives and they're not even traveling through time like they usually do. But then they fall asleep again and wake up in a world in which they're back in the TARDIS and it is about to crash. And they meet this man who tells them that one of these worlds is reality, but he won't tell them which. So they have to wake up in one of these worlds, because if you die in the dream, you wake up in reality. But if you die in reality, obviously you die. So they have to determine which one of these things they're seeing is actually reality. Various words from Doctor Who have actually made it into the dictionary, such as sonic screwdriver, one of the tools the Doctor uses, Dalek, one of the Doctor's enemies, TARDIS, what the Doctor travels in, and Cybermen, another one of the Doctor's enemies. All of these things can be featured in the dictionary. In 1984, an asteroid was discovered and named TARDIS after the Doctor's TARDIS. Obviously, the TARDIS, or the police box, is a very iconic part of Doctor Who, if not the most iconic thing, but it was not trademarked until 2002 because, of course, it was a police box, which was hard to trademark because police boxes are already actual things, or at least they were. I don't know if they still are. But anyways, so there wasn't actually a trademark on the TARDIS police box until 2002, and it took 6 years to get that trademark. Now we've come to number 4 in the best of Doctor Who seasons 1 through 5. This episode is called The Sound of Drums / Last of the Time Lords. This is a 2-part series, so there's 2 episodes in it. This one is about when we find out that there is that the Doctor isn't the last Time Lord alive like we've been led to believe. There is another Time Lord out there called the Master, a Time Lord gone rogue. And he literally takes over the entire Earth, and he imprisons the Doctor and the Doctor's friend Martha Jones, and some of his other friends like Captain Jack Harkness must find a way to free the Doctor and defeat the Master. It is said that Doctor Who is the reason for David Tennant becoming an actor. Like I said earlier, David Tennant played the Doctor, the 10th Doctor, so that would be seasons 2 through 4, and like I said, my favorite Doctor Who actor. But he grew up watching Doctor Who, particularly the 4th Doctor, that would be Tom Baker's run. And he said that because he loved Doctor Who so much, he wanted to play the Doctor, and playing the Doctor was the reason he became an actor. In the Doctor Who episode Fires of Pompeii, it features 2 actors who were to be later in the series, that showed up later in the Doctor Who series. So the 2 would be the actor who played the 12th Doctor, shows up in that episode, and also the actors who played Amy Pond later in that series. So 2 future Doctor Who actors are in that episode. The Daleks are another iconic part of Doctor Who. The Daleks are an alien species who have a robot encasing around them, and they kind of slide around. They have a big eye stalk and some laser weapons and all sorts of stuff, and they're the Doctor's arch nemesis. Well, those are really hard to control, especially back in the original series, when they didn't have as good special effects as now, because a person would have to get into the Dalek suit and had about 8 different things to pull to control the different parts of the Dalek, and it was really tough for them to control it, or even see or hear what was going on around them. Now, Doctor Who has always been a show that was meant for people from kids to adults, but specifically when it was started, it was meant to be an educational show for kids. The original intention of Doctor Who was to teach kids science and history through a kind of time travel sort of way. Obviously, it's not like that now, but that's how it started out. And now it is time for number 3 on my list of top Doctor Who episodes ever. Seasons 1 through 5. This episode is called The End of Time, and is actually 2 parts. The End of Time Part 1 and The End of Time Part 2. These are the last 2 episodes of David Tennant's run as the 10th Doctor. By the end of these episodes, he regenerates into the 11th Doctor, played by Matt Smith, and these are also the last episodes in Series 4. So this episode is basically about the Master returning. Remember him? I talked about him in the last episode I talked about. Yeah, so they defeated him in that episode, but now, about a series later, he returns, and he is even more of a threat to the Doctor. There is also a prophecy. The Doctor learns that he is dying, but of course he doesn't die because he goes on for another, the show is still going. But it is a really great episode, and it involves him fighting the Master, and also all the Time Lords returning, because they are supposed to be the last of the Time Lords, but through a time kind of collapse, all the Time Lords return, and it almost brings about the end of the Earth. The Master replaces every single human on Earth with a copy of the Master, and the Doctor has to fix all of that. And now it is time for another segment of product review. We'll start off with what I own for Doctor Who. I own a couple things, not much. I do have the first 2 seasons of the reboot on DVD. I own a Dalek Funko Pop. I owned a Dalek figurine, but that broke. The Dalek Funko Pop is worth like $16, I think, by the way. I own the 10th Doctor Sonic Screwdriver, and I own a TARDIS keychain Funko Pop. So that is what I own for Doctor Who. But now let's have a look at what is out there for Doctor Who. We'll start off by going to Amazon with a general Doctor Who merchandise search. The first thing that comes up is an ad for another thing selling Doctor Who merchandise that does look really cool. It is the TARDIS with Bad Wolf painted on the side from one of the 9th Doctor's episodes. Then some of the Amazon stuff that comes up. A water bottle that looks like the doors of the TARDIS, but for some reason it's green. A blanket, t-shirt, a blanket with a painting that Vincent van Gogh paints of the TARDIS exploding, a t-shirt that looks like Abbey Road but with Doctor Who characters, A TARDIS jewelry box. A TARDIS Christmas ornament with a reef on it, only $11. I definitely want that. A sign that says TARDIS parking only. Violators will probably die in this episode. I also really want that, only $10. A hoodie that my friend has for like $54. The same doll-like Funko Pop I have for $25. I only paid $11.75 for it, so not from Amazon though. I got it at a toy store in Delaware. More t-shirts, a super old Doctor Who Lego set for like $217. A TARDIS teapot. More shirts, some figurines. A hat that looks like the TARDIS, only $7 again. I want that. And yeah, so that's basically it. But now we're going to go over to the Funko app to look at what's available for Doctor Who Funko-wise. And there is a good bit. They're just kind of older, so they're worth more, or just harder to find. So we got the 4th Doctor, $17, 13th Doctor, $11, 10th Doctor, $16, 12th Doctor, $12, 11th Doctor variant, $12. Then we have the 10th Doctor variant with the severed hand in his hand. I know this doesn't make sense unless you've seen this. One that is worth a little bit more is the 12th Doctor with an electric guitar. That's worth $70. Then some Doctor Who Pez. 11th Doctor with a fez and a mop. That's $33. 10th Doctor with the 3D glasses. $34. And then one of my favorites, the 10th Doctor in his orange spacesuit, but that one is worth $75. But this really is my favorite Doctor Who pop I've seen so far. This is the 9th Doctor just regenerating into the 10th. So it is the 10th Doctor dressed in the 9th Doctor's clothes and glowing. And that's only worth $25. And it really is super awesome. Then we get into all sorts of like different villains of the Doctor and different companions of his. So yeah, that's basically what's out there for Doctor Who. So there actually is a good bit, you just have to do some searching. And now we're down to number 2 on my list of greatest Doctor Who episodes, seasons 1 through 5. This one is particularly special because most of the ones that made it into the top numbers are multiple part episodes, because usually the bigger, more important episodes are multiple parts. But this one, number 2, is just a singular standalone episode. And in fact, this episode doesn't even feature the Doctor that much. This one is from Series 3 and is called Blink, and it is it's the introduction of the Weeping Angels. The Weeping Angels are angel statues that every time you blink, they get a little closer to you. And if you turn your back, if your eyes are not on them, they move towards you, and they'll blast you back in time and use the energy from your potential timeline to basically, make them live longer. So this episode features a character called Sally Sparrow and her friend who sneak into an abandoned house. There they find the statues of the Weeping Angels, and her friend is blasted back to a long time ago. And she writes her letter and sends it to Sally Sparrow in the future, and she gets it to find out that she was blasted back to the past. None of this makes sense, but she starts getting messages from this guy, the Doctor, and he gives her simple instructions. Don't blink. Don't even turn your back. You blink, you're dead. And Sally has to survive from these Weeping Angels, and she can't even blink or look away from them. The Doctor doesn't even really show up in the flesh until towards the end of the episode, but really this episode is really, really good. One of the iconic things of the 11th Doctor is he wears a bow tie and constantly reminds everyone that bow ties are cool. But in the UK, after the release of the 11th Doctor's first episode, bow tie sales drastically increased because people wanted to be like the 11th Doctor. But even though this look is iconic, it was not the original plan. They went through a lot of different outfits for the 11th Doctor. And being a Doctor Who fan and knowing the 11th Doctor, seeing all these different outfits they tried on him does not look right at all. And I'm glad they went with what they did. One of the characters we see in Doctor Who is Amy Pond, but we also see a younger version of Amy Pond. And the actress who played Amy Pond has a cousin who actually played the younger version of her. The release of the 13th Doctor's first episode was the most watched Doctor Who episode in 10 years, with 9 million people watching. But the most watched Doctor Who episode was the first episode of the reboot in 2005, with 9.9 million watching. around 100 original Doctor Who episodes were lost, like original from like the first of the Doctor Who in the 60s, because they weren't archived very well. But now they've managed to recover some of it, and one of the original 100 that was missing was the pilot, but recently they rediscovered it, so now they have archived the Doctor Who pilot. Now, we're just about to announce the number 1 episode on my list of top 5, or really this is top 30, I talked about this earlier, episodes of season 1 through 5. But before that, I want to talk about some episodes that are not my favorite of those 5 seasons. I'm not saying these episodes are bad or terrible, though. They're not terrible. But they definitely aren't my favorites of the they definitely aren't my first pick to rewatch. So here are some of my ones that I think aren't the best of Doctor Who. The first one is Fear Her. This was an episode in, I believe, season 3, and really was not very good. This was one of those episodes that takes place before the big episode, that the big important episode, and I find a lot of episodes that take place before big important episodes, for whatever reason, aren't that good, and Fear Her was not very good. Next is Midnight, another one of those episodes before something big happens. This one is about the Doctor going on this kind of bus ride, but on a bus in, space on a different planet. And this creature comes into it and, possesses people. And it's really weird because, all they do is just kind of repeat back what everyone's saying. And it's really drawn out and somewhat boring. And the last one, and isn't really that bad, but really is one of the strangest, but not strange in a good way, episodes. This one is called The Unicorn and the Wasp, and was in Series 4, I believe. This one features the Doctor and Donna going back to a 1920s dinner party where they have to solve a murder mystery and solve crimes, but also there is a giant wasp that is going around, but is also an alien. And it really is just kind of weird. But now let's talk about my top pick for best Doctor Who episodes, seasons 1 through 5. This one was not a season finale, but this one still was what I feel is an important episode. It wasn't important to episodes to come. You don't have to know what happened in this one to understand other episodes. But it really was quite the episode. This one's a 2-part series, and it's called The Impossible Planet and Satan's Pit. This one involves the Doctor and Rose Tyler flying the TARDIS into a base that is on a planet. This planet is what we call the Impossible Planet, because it has a black hole in the center, and which makes no sense. So the people on the base are drilling to see what's in the center and causing this black hole, which is really extremely dangerous. And because it is dangerous, it causes part of the base to break off, the part with the TARDIS in it, so the TARDIS is lost forever, and the Doctor and Rose are not able to get off this base. But finally, the drill gets to the center, and the Doctor and someone from the base go down into the center. There they find this giant pit, where the Doctor goes into it and meets someone who may or may not be Satan. He's this giant red beast with horns, and he has this huge conversation with him, while the entire planet is about to explode, and the people on the base probably are not going to make it. But finally the Doctor defeats Satan, but he's still gonna die and everyone else is. And he's backing up, he's in this kind of room where everything that got sucked into the black hole is, and as he's backing up, he bumps into something, and he turns around, and in a big dramatic way, they reveal it is the TARDIS! And he flies out of the TARDIS, saves everyone on the base, saves Rose Tyler, and they all go home. And it is a really good episode, and it's probably the one I rewatched the most in those 5 seasons. Okay, that is it for this episode of the Nerdflix podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this special 30th episode, and I hope you guys will listen in next week and the coming weeks, because we are doing a Halloween series. And so, until then, I will see you next time on Nerdflix.
Time for Anakin! I have the high ground!
I'm Batman. You're a wizard, Harry. 1.21 gigawatts.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Exterminate!